Welcome to another episode of Sports and Discourse with your host, Derek Stevenson. And real quickly, I'm not going to hold y'all too long, but I just want to ask you, how do you feel about the comments that LeBron James had made? I think they were like around All-Star weekend about him wanting to play wherever his son could play, right? And the reason why I'm asking you about it is because I had kind of read some little reports and watched some shows, and some of the people were saying that around the NBA, some of the general managers and different executives were kind of getting sick of LeBron James, and it started to make me feel like, man, it seems like a lot of these general managers and such will be happy when LeBron James finally retires, right? And I think I know the reason why. So, LeBron James had made the statements where he would do anything to play with his son, right? And I don't knock him for that at all, right? Sometimes I'm super critical of LeBron James, but I think it would be super dope if he actually got to play, in the NBA along with his son, right? Now, me personally, I'm not sure how I actually feel about Bronny as an actual NBA prospect, right away. Initially, I feel like I don't believe he's top level talent, right? I think a lot of people are saying that he's he's the 30th ranked junior. So he's creeping up into that, that top tier list of high school athletes, right? And who knows where he'll end up being ranked by the time his senior season is over. I'll have to wait and see. But as of right now, I feel like I don't really see pro prospect, but his dad is LeBron James. And, I think I'm not saying that he will solely get an opportunity based on who his dad is, but I do think that will have some influence on it, which I'm completely fine with, right? Like if your dad paved the way or if your dad opened the door, walk through the door, right? That's what we're supposed to do for our children. We're supposed to make things easier for the next generation, right? So I could never knock LeBron James for figuring out a way to provide his son with an opportunity to be successful in whatever it is that he's trying to achieve, right? And like I said, I think it would be super dope to see them play together, whether Bronny's good enough or not, right? But I do believe that a lot of the general managers and executives will be like super happy when LeBron James is out of the league, because LeBron James has just did things that no other athlete was capable of doing before him. And I don't know if there'll ever be another athlete that's good enough to accomplish some of the things that he accomplished after him. And what I'm talking about specifically is not really basketball related. It's more of business and, well, basically it is. It's just the business side of basketball, right? Like even when you talk about some of the athletes that came before them, the great ones, all they were able to really do was just basically get big contracts, right? Like you look at Michael Jordan, who was grossly underpaid for the majority of his career, but the last several years of his career, he was able to get a $36 million per 1 year contract, right? But that's really all that, like Michael Jordan never really had control of the franchise. They never really catered to all of his wants and desires. And then, you had people like Sean Kemp and Kevin Garnett and Shaq start breaking the barrier where players were able to ink $100 million deals, right? And that was a big deal in the 90s and early 2000s. Like to get that type of money was crazy, right? I know now like $100 million deal, like you can be like, the third or fourth best player on your team right now and you can get $100 million deal. Like it's not really that impressive. Like the average like top tier basketball player now is making 30-something million a year, if not more, right? You have some people like John Wall, Russell Westbrook, and others that's, probably KD, I'm not for sure, but probably KD, LeBron, they making 40-something million. So, it's not really that big of a deal now, but at that time it was. But that was basically as far as it extended with these guys, right? But LeBron was able to basically start manipulating free agency in a way that nobody was ever able to do. LeBron was the first guy that started looking at his contracts and being like, well, I don't really think right here I should sign a 7-year deal. I think maybe I should sign a 5-year deal. And then when the 5th year is up, then I'll have options to do A, B, and C instead of just having option A, right? So he was the first one to me that really started becoming dominant off the court, right? And I'm sure a whole lot of executives and owners probably despise him deep down for that, right? He was able to create all of these businesses. He started the Klutch Sports, talent agency. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like a lot of these managers probably want him out of the league, because it's almost like I call it the Klutch Sports Mafia, right? Because it's like LeBron James is not really technically like, that's Rich Paul's company, right? But it's connected to LeBron James, and it's almost like an organized crime family. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful or like hate, like I don't want to associate LeBron to that in a negative way, because that's not really what I'm trying to convey here. The point I'm trying to make is that it's organized and structured like a family, right? So, for instance, when Ben Simmons decided that he didn't want to play for Philadelphia anymore, right? So he's a Klutch agent. He decides that he's done, like he's cool on Philadelphia. So, when he's talking to Rich Paul and, whoever he has to deal with over there, right? Rich Paul comes out and says, oh, we don't want Maxey over there either now, right? And that's the part that's probably going to, really like keep some of these general managers and executives up at night, because when you start making these moves in the future, you're going to have to figure out how it may affect a whole lot of other things going forward, right? And I'm glad that Rich Paul didn't actually do anything, or he left Maxey out of it, because it's actually worked out better for Maxey with Ben Simmons leaving, because now Maxey is, he's blossoming into a really like, a really, like, I ain't going to call him a star player. Like, he still got to show me a lot more before I give him star, but he's showing star potential, right? He's showing like, if you put some more pieces around, like Maxey can become like a legitimate like 20+ point scorer on a nightly basis. Like, he's young, he plays hard, he gets buckets, like he's starting to really like develop his game, right? So I'm glad that, they just left him alone, let him do his thing. But the point that I'm trying to make is when you deal with Klutch Sports, you don't just deal with the athlete that's on your team. You have to think about how it's going to affect you moving forward. Like, if you say something bad about Anthony Davis, do the other Klutch athletes come to your team? Or, like, it's just one of those things where you got to really be careful with how you tread with Klutch Sports, right? And the thing that I'm wondering is, like, say a team drafts Bronny, right? And they're not really interested in Bronny, but they're interested in LeBron James playing with Bronny, right? So you might just look at it like, look, LeBron James signed a 1-year deal, and then he says he's retiring. So he's going to play 1 year with Bronny, then he's going to retire, right? So you draft Bronny. You may even tell LeBron James something different, but you're really just trying to get as much money as you can for this 1 year. So you're trying to get the merchandise to go crazy. You're trying to get the ticket sales to go crazy. You probably ain't really concerned as much about winning. It just depends on what team it would actually happen for. But realistically, you trying to profit as much as you can in this 1 year. And then when LeBron James retires, then it's when things can get tricky, right? Because let's say LeBron James retires and then you just automatically go, Bronny, we done with you, right? That probably would hurt LeBron James so bad to see his son done like that. Who knows what could happen in the future, man? Who knows if he don't hit Rich Paul and be like, hey, we don't deal with them. So now, I don't know what team it could be. I'll just use any team, for example. Say it's the Orlando Magic, right? So now the Orlando Magic done cut Bronny. So now Bron is like, Big Bron, he's like, man, we don't deal with the Magic like that no more. So now anytime, one of the Klutch players become free agents or such, they don't deal with Orlando. So now you could potentially blown any chance you have. And I know Orlando doesn't really get top-notch free agents like that anyways. But like I said, I'm just using them as an example. But, if you was to cross Bronny, now you might have to deal with the repercussions of that for years to come, dealing with some of these other Klutch athletes. So I don't know, man. It's just something to think about. But I think it's been a great asset to LeBron. But I just wonder how it will actually affect his child. You know what I mean? Like, I wonder, is somebody gonna be, brave enough to take a chance on Bronny, or is it gonna scare people that may be afraid to even work with him? We'll just have to wait and see, man. But like I said, man, Klutch Sports definitely moves like a family, and you got to be very careful when you deal with them boys, man, because they make moves and they stick together, and it just is what it is at this point. If Anthony Davis, they got him up out of there, they got him where he wanted to go. So one thing about Klutch, man, when they start to put their foot down, man, they got a lot of leverage and they usually get what they want done, man. So we'll just see. But anyways, you let me know what you think about it. Would you draft Bronny? Right now, I would say I probably would pass on Bronny, man. But who knows? It just depends. If you get a chance to get LeBron James, how can you really say no? So I'm not for sure. I don't know what's going to happen. But anyways, like I said, you let me know what you think. And I'll see you next time on Sports and Discourse with Derek Stevenson.